guys, I hope you're well. I just wanted to share something about control and surrendering that God's teaching me about. And it's not an easy journey. um, and I heard a lot about surrendering, but it never like came together until recently. I feel like in relationships, there's a power struggle. In relationships that aren't aware and aren't like just my relationship in general, we weren't aware of what we were doing. We just had these patterns of thinking and patterns that led to patterns of emotions, and that led into more thoughts that were just very detrimental to the relationship, like judging, like you're this and I'm married to this kind of person and I'm this kind of person, I'm a victim. And so those kind of things, I would try to change in Jeff, like don't yell, like don't yell at me, or don't do this and don't do that. But that wasn't like a very, like, we identified the behavior, but the thoughts and the emotions leading up to that was never really addressed. And I kept trying to control his behavior, and I would try to control him in ways to make him better, like, hey, you could do this way, or like even just undermining little decisions that he would make. And so he just got to a point where he didn't want to make decisions at all, and he was very wishy-washy. And then I got mad at him for that, and so I became wishy-washy as well, and it was just like not a very healthy situation. And what happened was, just recently, I'm realizing when there's a power struggle of control, we're both not allowing the other person to just be who they are, be who God created them to be. And our job isn't really to change them, and their job isn't to change us. Like, there's things that Jeff does not like about me, my messiness, that he can tell me in kind ways, but and I can tell him in ways that, like, this bothers me, and then we can have communication. But throwing a temper tantrum or getting angry or yelling or slamming things like I would do, slamming doors and things like that, like, that is a device of control. And that's when we already know that we don't have control over the other person. So we try to control them to get a temporary outcome. So, like, if I would yell, or if Jeff would yell, we would get a temporary outcome. Like, I would clean, but I would be mad about it. Or he would do something that I was telling him to do, but he would also be mad about it. So I was just thinking, like, if we're trying to do God's part, which he doesn't even control us, he gives us free will. But if we're trying to change God's part and like do God's part, or like in the way that control an outcome, or if we're trying to focus on something that's outside of our control instead of surrendering, then we're not putting our focus on what we can do. And that's why I was a victim for so long. And I still have that kind of pattern that I fall into, that victim mentality. Like, well, you're not the person that I married or that I wanted to marry. And I'm sure Jeff thinks that about me too sometimes, just because, we're different people. But if we can get out of that and say, okay, well, thinking like that, is that going to help our relationship? Am I really committed to this person? Yes. Do I love them? Yes. And do I want the best for them? Yes. Do I want them to want the best for me? Of course, yes. All of those answers. So are these thoughts serving me? Is how I'm treating him that control, even if it's just like, maybe you should have done it this way, or, maybe it's like little things. It doesn't have to be like big shows of anger or things like that, but it's just everyday little things to undermine and disrespect him. Like, instead of just surrendering and letting him be, when we try to control the other person, they feel it and we feel it. And it's not God's will. And it just kind of destroys the integrity of the relationship. And so I was just thinking, like, how great would it be if we just allowed each other to be free, like we grow so much faster. When I'm in a Bible study, when I'm talking to a friend that's just listening and not judging me or not, you know, trying to change me, just listening, I actually come up with amazing ideas, and I come up with, like, you know, God shows me things just through that safe space that my friend has created for me, or the Bible study has created for me, or, you know, my coach has created for me. I come up with my own solutions better than they could have come up with. So it's amazing that my husband can come up with his own solutions way better than I can come up with. And that's when I give him space for the Holy Spirit to talk to him. And same here, like if he gives me space instead of telling me, like, I already know the cleaning bothers him, but if he like drills it and nags it into my head, you know, like drills it into my head, then I'm going to be focused on that and I'm going to get defensive. But if he allows me to be, then it's like, oh, okay, yeah, I know he doesn't like this. You know, he's giving me space to grow and work on it. And if we give each other space to grow and we surrender the outcome, because the outcome really, we have no control over. Like we can prepare, like for an audition, I was thinking, even as an actor, like we can prepare. That is our responsibility. And if we don't do our responsibility and we're just like, okay, let's meditate on the outcome. Let's like, God, like just pray on the outcome. Like, well, we haven't taken our responsibility to do the work. And so the outcome is going to be the outcome. And even if we did the best job possible, like the outcome is going to be the outcome. It's, you know, like we can pray, but when we do the work, it's like God can really move in that. If we own everything and, you know, memorize the lines, do all the character development, like really get into it and surrender and not be focusing on the outcome. Because if we're focusing on the outcome, it causes us a lot of pain and we're trying to control something that's outside of our control. And so God's been showing me this lately, and I've had some success with just letting Jeff be. And I find that the days are happier. It's not easy because there's a lot of things that I want to point out to him. And then when he points out things to me, that just makes me insane. Because I'm like, I'm not pointing out things about you, and now you're pointing out things about me. Like before I was pointing out things about you too, and that's whatever. But, you know, like, so now I'm letting you be, and now you're pointing out all of my stuff. But yeah, I mean, surrendering and modeling that, because if we're not pointing it out to them, it gives them more freedom to just breathe and be. And, you know, appreciating them for who God has made them. Just appreciating them where they're at. Because what kind of a Bible study would it be if it was like, everyone's like, no, you need to do this, you need to do that. Like, where you're at isn't good enough. Let me tell you where you need to be because I see everything about your future. It's like, yeah, that's what I try to do to Jeff sometimes. Like, you're not in a good place right now. I'm going to tell you what to do. And it doesn't create, like, any kind of safe space for us to be vulnerable. He just shuts down. He gets more angry. I get angry. And it just creates a very toxic environment where there's this power struggle. We're trying to control each other and force outcomes when we can just let it be. And God really, really will work in that. So I just want to encourage you to maybe think about that in your own way, maybe if that applies to you, or if you know, for me, it's just a constant reminder, like, am I trying to control this outcome right now? Is how I'm thinking serving me? Is it serving God's purpose for my life? Is it creating anxiety in my life? Is it creating conflict between Jeff and I? And so, yeah. Well, God bless you, and thank you for watching. Yeah, God bless your relationships, and have a beautiful, beautiful day or night.